Next time, tell your big boy to show up and be ready to handle the woman in the room who hopefully will become the next president of the United States. The American people are woke enough to.
In a mere 57 blistering seconds, the walls of Congress appeared to vibrate beneath Jasmine Crockett's voice. In front of an audience of 40 million Americans, she dropped a bombshell, a list of 27 secret pardons, freshly inked, each with the stench of corruption. Across the table, Donald Trump's cocky smile faltered as his own daughter plopped the incriminating proof into the brightness of the microphone. The question clamped the air like a vice. Would America see its strongest man felled by his own blood? Against the steel-gray sky, Capitol Hill rose like a fortress preparing for impact. News vans clogged every street. Protesters crashed on marble steps, one crowd shouting, "No one above the law," the other bellowing, "Witch hunt." As police maintained the thin line, eyes searching for the initial spark, within, a hum ran through the room when Jasmine Crockett stepped out of a side door. She held one folder tightly to her ribs, her stance unbreakable, her eyes scanning cameras and witnesses in a single deliberate sweep. Each calculated stride carved deeper into the silence of the carpet, each one piling on the expectation. In the middle of the room, Donald Trump sat, already in the witness stand, beautifully framed for the primary camera view. His hands loosely lay across smooth wood, a smile playing at his mouth as if the end of the day had been already dictated in his favor. His advisors, custodians of his image instead of his person, leaned in with whispered words or fed him creased notes into outstretched hands. He didn't look at Jasmine at first, but when he did, there was a flash, half recognition, half defiance before the smirk came back. Television channels were poised for spark. CNN flashed, "Pardon power questioned." MSNBC hailed, "Accountability live." Fox cut straight to the chase. Hearing begins. Throughout homes, bars, workplaces, and airport terminals, captions scrolled underneath split images of Jasmine and Trump, the country holding its collective breath, knowing that millions watched. Judging in the gallery, faces spoke their own silent tales. A retired sergeant rigid under his dress cap. A nurse in scrubs murmuring unheard prayers. A shop owner with phone clutched in his hand, thumb poised over the record button, as if he might catch history's next lightning bolt. The tension was palpable, weighing on all, no matter what side they were on. A compressor somewhere in the depths of the building let out a slow hiss, a mechanical acknowledgement that even machines felt the gravity of this day. Staff members stood rigid at their stations, gazing at the chairman. A camera's lens adjusted with an audible snap, enough to catch heads. The chairman brought up his gavel but left it suspended, prolonging the moment to the point of breakdown. In the broadcast booth, a producer mouthed off the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Red tally lights blazed on. One camera zoomed wide, capturing Jasmine and Trump side by side in the same frame. Because the most pointed stories are created where two edges converge. Jasmine placed her folder on the table with a sharp slap. She said nothing yet, merely glared at Trump, allowing the quiet to be used as its own weapon. In living rooms, lunchrooms, and packed terminals across the nation, people involuntarily leaned forward at precisely the same instant. Would America see its greatest man bring down by his own daughter? The gavel came down. The hearing was underway. Jasmine leaned over her microphone, her tone firm but icy. "Mr. Trump, did you ever issue a pardon for personal or political purposes in exchange for some personal or political benefit during your presidency? No build-up, no niceties. Just a knife unsheathed." In the middle of the day, Trump laughed, low and condescending. "Congresswoman, I understand you're trying to make a name for yourself, but you might want to stick to facts, if you can find any." His supporters in the audience responded with smug laughter, as though they shared some inside joke. Trump leaned back, drumming the table as though inviting her to make her next move. Jasmine didn't flinch. "Facts," she said calmly, "are coming." She turned a page in her notes, slowly, deliberately, the soft whisper of paper feeding into the microphone. "And, Mr. Trump, I assure you, this isn't rumor. This is on the record." Her gaze did not waver from his. A rumble went through the press area. A political reporter glancing at his phone. A CNN correspondent jotting down 3 words in her notebook. Surprise witness en route. The phrase traveled like pre-storm static. Cocked his head, raising an eyebrow. "You politicians do love your surprises," he sneered. "Don't forget, surprises cut both ways." The words were the form of banter, but the weight of a threat. His fingers drummed faster now, the beat betraying a nervous flicker. Jasmine allowed the silence to grow until it was starting to hurt. Jasmine inched closer again, her tone low but biting. "When the truth comes into this room, it won't knock." The words dangled in the air, tugging the gallery forward in their seats. A young aide in the second row instinctively glanced at the chamber doors, hand brushing his earpiece, while a journalist whispered to her cameraman, "Something's about to break. Keep rolling." The chairman's glare quieted the growing hum as Trump shifted in his seat, glancing toward the entrance before catching himself. The smirk returned, thinner this time, not quite reaching his eyes. "You've got nothing," he said too quickly. Jasmine smiled, not wide, not kind, her tone carrying the confidence of someone who had already read the last page of story. "We'll let America decide that." The room tightened like a coiled spring as cameras inched closer, hungry for the moment the scene would detonate. Trump inched closer to his mic, challenging her. "Show me what you got, Congresswoman." She wrapped her folder once, the crack loud and deliberate. "I will," she said, "but I'm not the only one." In living rooms, airport lounges, and everywhere in between, millions of viewers received the same electric shock. What happens when the person you trust most has the receipts? Jasmine opened her folder and pulled out a thick, sealed envelope. Its wax seal a deep, foreboding red that caught the harsh lights. She set it down on the table with a slap that turned heads and froze the room. "This," she asserted, voice firm and magnified, "has never been read aloud to the American people." Press stalled midway through the note, cameras closing in until the seal consumed America's screens. The witness chair on the periphery of the frame remained vacant. CNN's anchor interrupted to report a tardy key witness, perhaps urging. Trump's eyes snapped toward that chair, fleeting but recorded by the cameras, the smirk growing even thinner. A whispered name, Ivanka, traveled from reporter to reporter, the gossip digging in the dirt. Jasmine pushed the envelope nearer. To her mic, the paper scratched sounding like a drumbeat. Every name, every date, every deal is in there. And once it's read, no one will pretend they didn't know. Trump cracked a forced laugh. "Nice theater, Congresswoman," but his clenched fingers revealed the urge for control. The air within the chamber thickened. Even a soft movement by the rear doors on the part of a security officer caused every eye to turn. Jasmine's gaze remained fixed upon him as she softly repeated, "When the truth comes through that door, it won't knock first." His smile recurred, this time tempered with the weight of defense, not mastery. Driven by his own gauntlet, she opened the seal on her folder and extracted a page bracketed with red tabs. Case number 1, convicted of securities fraud. Pardon, February 2020. She read it from the record, never looking at his face. Trump waved it away immediately. Fake news. She recorded his refusal, a tiny lawyer's tick next to his name. Case number 2, federal bribery, pardon July 2019. Fake news. The voice rising this time, his foot tapping once, then twice under the table. She noted it quietly. Case number 3, tax evasion related to political fundraising. Pardon December 2018. Never happened, he barked, eyes flashing toward the door. She read them one by one, each denial depositing an inked breadcrumb only she could interpret. The gallery stayed hushed except for her voice and the scratch of her pen. MSNBC whispered, "He's rattled," while CNN typed furiously about a pattern of denial before a witness appears. Trump tried to reclaim the floor. "You're wasting everyone's time," but his shoulders tightened, his chin dropped, and his smirk faltered. Jasmine slowed on case number 7, wire fraud, pardon March 2020, letting the silence fill. CNN's crawl stated, "Unexpected witnesses, rumor swirls in hearing room," while Fox maintained a split screen of her peaceful face next to his. She opened the folder halfway, eyes fixed on his. "Almost," she replied levelly. When the last footsteps are always easiest to trace. Even as his final denial lingered, his advisors fidgeted uncomfortably, one whispering with eyes shooting to the back, another scrolling a phone, its screen flashing beneath the heavy lights. The mood in the room changed as Trump's bravado visibly faltered. Every twitch caught on camera. In the press gallery, a Politico journalist leaned over a friend, phone clutched, its text exploding in quiet. Ivanka just seen in the back corridor. The rumor went through like a shock current, reporters whispering it to each other in anxious, quieted tones. Jasmine felt the wave but never lost her pace, slipping another paper under the beam of her microphone. "Sometimes," she said in a steady tone, eyes fixed on Trump, "the people who are nearest to you can say things more convincingly than anyone else." The smirk left his face. He sat up straighter, hands on the table, palms flat, knuckles white. An NBC reporter spoke into his mic. "We're hearing reports, unconfirmed, that Ivanka Trump is in the building." A statement that made viewers from across America lean in towards their screens. Jasmine pushed more firmly, her serene voice carrying authority. The truth, she asserted, could be within the family. Trump did not require her to state the name. His gaze shifted to the rear doors. Tension in his jaw gave away calculation. Phones in the press area flashed breaking alerts. Ivanka. To testify. Hopes ran wild online. A lawyer leaned in and whispered something to calm Trump down. But his eyes continued to flicker to the press, to Jasmine, to the doors. Jasmine allowed the silence to lengthen until it stretched the room taut. Then, in a low but resonant voice, she cautioned, "When truth has no place left to hide, it finds its way home." Beyond the doors, Ivanka froze against the wall, A black leather case clutched in her hand, its load heavier than paper had any cause to be. A security officer changed position close to her, feeling the gravity of her hesitation. Inside, the cameras awaited, lenses tuned, lights on. Trump's head shifted fractionally as the soft, measured cadence of heels on marble pierced the thrum of the room. Journalists stood still. A camera operator silently mouthed, "She's here." On the live broadcast, an anchor whispered, "We might just be about to see the witness." Ivanka's heartbeat remained even as she breathed 3 slow breaths, each one drawing her toward a point of no return. Jasmine's eyes darted from the door to Trump, fingers drumming twice against the closed envelope in her hand. Trump was seated upright now, an undertone of whispering from his advisors, his right hand flexing into a loose fist, thumb tracing around his knuckles. Then Ivanka moved forward each snap of her heels, cutting through the air until the whole gallery was hushed. The double doors of the heavy chamber burst open. Her walk was crisp, purposeful, eyes ahead as heads turned and cameras panned. A murmur grew until the chairman's gavel for silence commanded it. Trump remained still for 2 seconds before his gaze met hers, the cameras recording a sudden change in his face recognition, blended with incredulity. Jasmine stood like stone, watching like a game player watching the final move. "Miss Ivanka." "Trump, please sit in the witness chair," she instructed, her voice ringing in the air. The chair creaked against the floor. Ivanka placed her case down, put her hands on it above, and sat. Microphone shifted softly, capturing each passing moment for posterity. Trump's aides hushed wildly, but his attention remained fixed on his daughter, waiting for a hint. There was none. She glanced at him briefly, then away. In the press section, a CNN correspondent whispered, "We're witnessing a historic break," the phrase instantly becoming a headline. The clerk slid a nameplate in front of her, an unspoken verdict. For all her years in the spotlight, Ivanka had never been across from her father like this, in a setting with criminal consequences hanging overhead. Trump moved, the leather of his chair creaking, his hand rising as if to wave her away. Then dropping back onto the table, one knuckle, drumming in anxious, amplified rhythm. Jasmine's voice was steady, almost soothing, as she reminded Ivanka, "Your testimony today will be under oath and part of the official record." It wasn't a threat, but the words hung in the air like a challenge as cameras closed. In on father and daughter, trapping them together in the same shot. Across the nation, living rooms and newsrooms fell silent. What happens when a daughter testifies against her own father? Ivanka steadied her hands on a black leather case, then unlatched it with 2 sharp clicks that echoed through the chamber. She pulled from it a thick pile of papers clipped with an unadorned metal clip, setting them down in front of her with a flat thud that drew the gallery forward in expectation. "This," she declared into the microphone, her voice steady and firm, "is the pardon list, the one no one was ever meant to see." She read off names: Douglas Fairmont, securities fraud, pardoned February 14th, 2020. Payment $1.6 million. Gasps spread throughout the crowd. Alma Rodriguez, bribery on behalf of the federal government, pardoned July 8th, 2019. $250,000 in cash received 3 days prior. Trump shifted uncomfortably in his seat, saying, "That's not," before stopping himself, the mic picking up his low protest. She went on. Carter wills, tax evasion to support political campaigning, payment not disclosed. Marcus Denton, wire fraud, $600,000 in cryptocurrency. Every name fell harder than the previous one, the room becoming increasingly still as she announced that each of the entries had accompanying proof. Trump glared at the stack as if it was some living menace. Then, raising her chin, Ivanka's voice rang. "For years I remained silent, thinking to myself it was to safeguard the family. But safeguarding family should never come at the expense of hurting the country. I will not be complicit." The sentence hit the room like a rock in tranquil water, eliciting stunned, tear-stained, and outraged faces all. Silence became complicity, she went on, and complicity became a burden I could no longer bear. "This is not about politics, it's about truth and the abuse of power." There passed, for the first time, a brief moment of convergence with Jasmine's eyes. Then Ivanka faced her father. "I love my family, but I love my country more. Sometimes the only way to save one is to confront the other." The air went cold until Trump, lips compressed, spoke a single word: betrayal, as if he had received a hammer blow. Ivanka did not blink. "Call it what you want. I say it's telling the truth." Trump's chair scraped loudly backward as he bellowed into the mic, calling it a disgrace, calling his daughter brainwashed, and berating Jasmine as a fraud who discredited America. Jasmine didn't flinch, her eyes firm as his voice grew louder, labeling the hearing a circus with her as the ringmaster. Ivanka remained frozen, her jaw clenched, bearing it as he attacked her for selling allegiance for headlines. The room hummed, with rumble and sidling chairs until the chairman's gavel boomed down, demanding order that couldn't quite silence the tempest. Trump disregarded the chairman's admonition. poking his finger between Jasmine and Ivanka. You two should be ashamed of the damage you're doing to this country and to your own blood. His tone was no longer debate, but domination, as if sheer volume could erase the paper trail in front of him. The committee shifted, uneasily, some avoiding his eyes, others glancing at Jasmine, as though waiting for her to strike back. The press gallery was a row of raised lenses, capturing every flinch, every bead of perspiration. Jasmine shifted forward slightly, but said nothing, allowing him to incinerate himself in the furnace of his own ire, the control ebbing away as the smirk gave way to unadulterated rage. Ivanka's voice sliced through the air like glass. This is not about sides, Dad. This is about the truth. The chamber froze. Trump's eyes darted wide, then narrowed to something icier, as the chairman's gavel slammed harder. Mr. Trump, restore order, or the hearing will be adjourned. He barely caught, fixed on his daughter, mouth set in a tight line. Jasmine waited for the after echoes to fade before leaning into her mic, her steady voice weighing like a hammer. Mr. Trump, the oath of office contains 21 words. Each president of ours takes them, the oath, not to himself, not to a party, but to the United States Constitution. You took an oath to uphold, maintain, and defend it, not your dynasty, not your own interests, not your family's wallet. When you raise your hand, you work for the people, that is the bargain, that is the responsibility. Treating this nation as property you can collateralize breaks that oath. She snapped open a folder. Richard Nixon forgot that. He left office in shame. Trump's eyes narrowed. Jasmine's voice remained even. You might believe the rules don't apply to you, every leader, until the rules remind them otherwise. This isn't Democrat or Republican. It's about the ground we all stand on. And when that foundation cracks, we all fall. Press pens flew. Shutters clicked. The United States does not belong to you, or to me, it belongs to the people you swore to protect. You were elected to serve this nation, not to own it. The day you forgot that was the day you stopped being worthy of the office. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. America's not your brand. It's our home, and you've played it like a negotiating chip. What's the problem when a president loses track that he's serving America, not owning it? Trump inched closer to the mic, voice dropping, near begging. Ivanka, you don't have to do that. Say you were misled can fix this on the down low. His eyes locked on hers. She didn't flinch. I'm not here to ruin you. I'm here for the truth. His hand drummed against the table. You don't know what they will do to you. You'll lose everything we've built. She rose up straight. I know precisely what this is. It's that I can look my children in the eye and say I didn't remain silent when it counted. He leaned in close, his voice barely above a whisper. They'll turn on you. You'll regret this. She stood firm. I'd regret more letting lies stand when I could have stopped them. A reporter wrote down the exchange verbatim. On MSNBC, the anchor leaned forward and whispered, "We are watching a daughter spurning her. Father's overture live." Trump stepped back, taking a sharp breath, eyes narrowing. Ivanka did not flinch until he dropped the gaze, looking down at the documents she had brought. Jasmine, quiet, understood the strength of a denial without apology. Closed all gaps for doubt. Cameras focused on Ivanka's firm hands. The positions had reversed. He was now seeking protection, and she had already made up her mind not to provide it. Jasmine pushed the heavy pile toward the edge of the table and then gave a folder to the clerk. Release the duplicates, she stated, her voice striking every mic. The media swarmed the packets, flipping through names, dates, and sums as cameras recorded ink and paper exchanging hands, broadcasting it into homes, news streams, and phones across the country. Shattering headlines glowed, secret pardon list unveiled. CNN divided the screen to display the document under scrutiny. Trump leaned in toward his lawyer, hissing piercingly, but it was too late. The air had changed to something charged, a buzzing. Tension spreading outside the walls of the chamber as reporters tweeted more rapidly than the gavel could bang for order. Phones vibrated through the gallery as headlines jumped from phone to phone, traveling across state lines in a matter of seconds. A Reuters photographer captured the instant. A Fox News reporter looked at her screen, eyes widening in response. To the alert she'd just sent, Ivanka surrenders evidence pardon list confirmed. In seconds, the chime flashed across her network, below Trump's own photo. Down the hallways, aides rushed with phones held to their ears, and opposing office workers stuck their heads in, feeling that history was being made. Down the street, lobbyists in a crowded coffee shop stopped mid-sip, eyes glued to the TV as the anchor read the first names aloud. Jasmine ignored the chaos. She was focused on Trump, watching how his tightly controlled expression frayed into something sharper, more unsettled. Every name was now public, every dollar evidence. There was no resealing this envelope. This will be everywhere in under an hour, one reporter grumbled to another. It's already there, was the response, as hashtags such as pardon list, Ivanka speaks. Crockett and Trump blew up on the internet. Trump's hands remain flat on the table now, his previous smirk a thing of the past, replaced by a combination of calculation and incredulity. Jasmine leaned in toward the mic, her voice unwavering. The American people own this information now, and they can decide what it means. The words cut deeper than any accusation, delivering the verdict to the millions who watched. CNN broadcast, live with a red banner secret pardon list, released as anchors verified the documents, tied presidential pardons to financial transactions. MSNBC pushed it further. It's about whether the rule of law applies to everybody or to sell. Fox questioned its legitimacy, with one guest labeling it a publicity stunt and another admitting, if this is true, it's a problem. Out in the hallway, Jasmine stood before a tidal wave of microphones. This is about accountability, she informed the media. It's not about politics, it's about whether truth is important enough to do something about it. When asked if she was accusing Trump of selling pardons, she replied simply, the evidence speaks for itself. I trust the American people to decide. The clip went viral in minutes online, amassing views with subtitles, such as, finally, someone says it. Inside, the excitement from outside was almost tangible. Staffers incessantly checked their phones, as the news blazed like fire. And then suddenly Trump pushed back his chair, the crack echoing above the din of clacking keyboards. This is a witch hunt, he shouted, pointing a finger at the committee and then out into the gallery. Cameras flared and burst as he marched away, disregarding his lawyer's efforts to restrain him. Mr. Trump, you're excused, the chairman yelled. After him, but the bang of the chamber doors muffled it. Down the hallway, his voice still rang out witch hunt, a soundbite set for perpetual replay. At the witness table, Ivanka sat on, hands folded, head tilted, still under the lights while her father's absence was heavy in the air. Jasmine took advantage of the silence, turning to the press. We will continue. The truth doesn't take a walk just because someone gets uncomfortable. The comment elicited murmurs, going live in mere seconds. Asked if the departure of Trump would alter the committee's actions. She shook her head. We follow the evidence. It doesn't matter who's sitting in the chair or who storms out of it. MSNBC replayed Trump's storm next to Jasmine's placidity. CNN underscored Ivanka's silent stillness, and Fox put the spin on it as Trump walks out on partisan hearing. In the gallery, some of the spectators regarded Ivanka with pity, others with suspicion. By the aisle, a man whispered in shock, she's not going with him. Jasmine continued to respond with unflinching accuracy, her voice firm, if anything. Trump's absence allowed her more latitude to speak. The cameras recorded each deliberate word, each steady breath, and every unwillingness to be unnerved. As the question lingered, when power wanes, how rapidly does dignity? By evening, the video had migrated from the Capitol's marble corridors and poured into living rooms, diners, and gas station televisions around America, with each channel looping. Trump storming away, Jasmine standing firm, and Ivanka standing her ground. Beyond Washington, the significance lived on, a former Marine in a VFW hall in Ohio, quietly remarking he'd never seen a commander-in-chief back down from a fight. A Phoenix high school teacher saving the clip to share with her civic students, knowing some of the parents would grumble, but resolved to impart the lesson of standing up. A business owner in Atlanta shaking his head over the exposed list, decrying how the wealthy get paid off while everyone else gets hurt, earning nods of strangers, and a woman nearby saying perhaps it was time to wake people up. Social media lit up with hashtags trending minute by minute. Hashtag she stayed, hashtag truth over power, hashtag walked out users posting the clip with fire emojis, laughter, or just the word, finally. Facebook fights erupted among families. Friends exchanged the video with captions that ranged from pride to disgust, and talk radio hosts throughout the political spectrum conceded that they hadn't anticipated such bravery. But the room had felt different. The argument went beyond politics, becoming a matter of loyalty, truth, and the price of dissociating from those who fed or took care of you. In a grain elevator in Kansas, a farmer informed his men that Jasmine had picked country over blood, a singular act. Cable news played another rerun, zooming in on Ivanka's calm folded hands under the headline, Daughter remains as father walks away, bringing together Americans on both sides of the aisle in a brief moment of mutual attention. By morning, the Capitol was altered, the standard scurry of aides and low hum replaced by an electric buzz. Jasmine Crockett's name spoken in every committee room and by reporters by the rotunda. Legislators quietly acknowledged that she had opened a door that could not be shut, cautioning, but aware that the center of gravity had moved, with hearings and subpoenas being negotiated behind closed doors. The video was inescapable, playing from elevators to phones, and the tale was no longer about bills, but about an individual who would not yield. Outside, cameras ringed the stairs as journalists yelled questions regarding criminal referrals, additional witnesses, and Trump's control. but mostly greeted with silence or evasive sound bites about allowing the process to work, yet nobody wanted. To be on the wrong side of Jasmine's moment, her enemies honed knives, contributors called, and negative campaign ads were written, attempting to brand her as treacherous and disloyal, while public accolades mounted and political anxiety increased. Jasmine sat at her desk observing the tempest from its center, aware of retaliation on the horizon, but sure the truth, once revealed, could never be pushed back into shadows. As the sun fell over the capital, talk grew more raucous. Stakes were higher, coalitions changed, and the first genuine battle lines were established. If truth makes you free, then why do so many people make it into enemies? The bargains disappeared. Ivanka's one-time packed schedule became bare, and the silence was exile. Threatening cryptic messages came. Cameras previously loving now greedily captured her every step. In private, Ivanka experienced loneliness, threats unvoiced but palpable, as friends portrayed her as Judas of the family. Conservative radio shows swore at her name, dinner gatherings became chilly, old friends disappeared. It was not merely a storm but an eraser. Ivanka received one night an unsigned envelope with a plain sheet in Jasmine's writing, expressing gratitude for speaking truth when it counted most. She read it 3 times, folding it neatly, not forgiveness, not protection, but acknowledgement. The letter remained on her desk, a reminder that betrayal and bravery wear the same face. Both leave you standing alone. Both cost a price, but only bravery allows you to sleep without regret. The chamber was colder than months ago as the vacant seat reserved for Trump shone under lights, the silence more powerful than any entrance. The committee vote loomed, the air charged as Jasmine sat with gaze fixed on the chair, replaying the moment 1,000 times, but carrying the live-wire tension for the first time. When the motion to call for criminal prosecution was brought forward, it was measured and decisive, no drama, just history in the making. Votes fell like hammers 1, 2, 3 each, sounding across the stilled room. Some legislators glared hard at paper. Others slumped back behind, quiet as armor. The numbers went one direction, unstoppable. Reporters pecked frantically. The headline wrote itself. Trump did not appear to defend himself, and that alone would ripple across the country before ink set. The final count brought quiet, followed by a reluctant clang of the gavel that sounded like an end to years of decay. Jasmine looked again at the vacant chair. Half of her hoped he'd be present, but the other half knew his absence spoke louder than any denial. A storm of sound and cameras brewed outside. Jasmine walked forward, unflinching, as aides took the recommendation to the Justice Department. Amidst the crowd, one question pierced. Does this mean he's guilty? Jasmine's answer was clear and firm. It means we've done our job. Now the law will do the rest. Can absence ever erase guilt? Undefined, or does it prove it? The Capitol steps glistened under the late afternoon sun. A podium waiting at the top draped with the seal of the United States and flanked by microphones from every major network. While below, a crowd stretched across the plaza, citizens, reporters, veterans in faded uniforms, and families clutching homemade signs. Jasmine walked out slowly, each step deliberate, the roar of the crowd swelling then softening to a hush as she reached the podium and scanned the faces. Not as a politician, but as one American among millions, her voice steady as she declared that today was not about one man or one party, but about the promise made at the nation's birth that no one is above the law and no one beneath its protection. The camera zooming in as she said justice isn't a weapon for the powerful, but a shield for all the people, acknowledging the crowd's anger, fear, and skepticism, but insisting this is accountability, not politics, reminding that the oath sworn defends the Constitution and the American people regardless of who you voted for. She spoke sharply of truth being American, not partisan. And despite the chair breaking from the plaza's far end, she continued, admitting the process was ugly and divisive, but real justice costs something, and shirking it risks what we claim. To defend honoring veterans, teachers, workers, small business owners, and young people who feel truth no longer matters, assuring them it matters now more than ever. Stepping back, letting her words hang as the flag snapped behind her like a drumbeat, she proclaimed justice belongs to all, never just the powerful, and asked when we forgot justice isn't partisan, but American. Meanwhile, silver rain fell, turning sidewalks into mirrors as Ivanka walked, alone code tight. Heels clicking on wet concrete, no cameras or bodyguards, her phone buzzing unnoticed as headlines screamed her name. But here, in the storm's quiet drip, she was. Just a woman who'd chosen truth over comfort. Across the country, Jasmine returned to her district, smelling fresh soil and rain-soaked fields, hugging a retired steelworker, shaking hands with a teacher who traveled 2 hours to thank her. No podiums, no microphones, just the people she vowed to fight for. In a small hall, she sat with farmers discussing rising costs, broken roads, and youth leaving for better cities. Listening and jotting notes, the battle in Washington distant, but its impact clear in every worried glance. Tired smile. Back in the city, Ivanka paused at a crosswalk, declining an umbrella, letting rain soak her hair and coat, knowing some storms must be walked through to wash away what needs to go. On a quiet porch in her hometown, Jasmine watched sunbreak through the storm as children's laughter spilled into damp air. Aware the fight wasn't over, but something had shifted. People had seen truth's cost. In two places, two women once divided by politics but now bound by courage breathed the same rain-filled air. Uncertain of tomorrow's headlines, but sure that sometimes love of country means standing against its most powerful. That patriotism is not praising power but courageously standing when it goes astray, even at great cost. Knowing honor and truth can't be bought with power or money, and asking if we're willing to trade comfort to protect justice for the next generation. If this story moved you, don't scroll past, like, share, and subscribe to Mr. Truth Stories, where courage speaks louder than fear and every voice matters. Tap the bell, because the next story might not just uncover truth, but challenge us to live it. Which moment hit you hardest? Leave a note below. Let's not merely watch history happen. Let's stand in it together. This dramatized narrative is based on real struggles and real individuals, with fictionalized characters and dialogue for commentary and education, not to defame or mislead, but to inspire reflection and civic awareness. Thank you for watching. Truth isn't over.